On a supersized episode to finish 2025, we take a cue from current events to discuss the long history between Thailand and Cambodia.
So if you want some educated layman's take on the complex friendship and rivalry between these two countries, you'll dig this episode of the Bangkok Podcast.
Sawadee krap, welcome to the Bangkok Podcast. My name is Greg Jorgensen, a Canadian who shaved his head when he got to Thailand in 2001 and now feels like a dirty hippie when the stubble gets beyond a few millimeters long. Thanks, tropical heat.
And I'm Ed Knuth, an American who came to Thailand on a one-year teaching contract over 25 years ago. Fell in love with watching Thai people shiver when it gets down to the nearly Arctic temperature of 75 degrees Fahrenheit. That's 24 degrees Celsius. So I never left.
Thanks for the conversion. I wasn't sure what you were talking about there.
I get, it's some schadenfreude. I kind of enjoy seeing Thai people literally shiver and put on jackets when it hits 24 degrees Celsius.
I've told you the story years ago when I took my son to Dream World and we went into the snow world, which is basically just a gigantic meat locker with fake snow. And I was like, oh, this will be easy. And I had like sandals on and stuff like that and shorts. Right. And I went in and I think it was 6 degrees and I nearly died. I thought I was going to die. It was
there used to be on Soy 22, there was a bar on 22 that had an ice bar. So it was a regular bar. You go upstairs and they had an ice bar.
That's titanium.
Titanium, right. Yeah. It's no longer there. But it was genuinely cold in there. Because we'd be partying, let's go do an ice shot. And then you step in there and it was okay, make this fast. Like, do it, buy the shots. Yeah. Like, let's get this over with.
Yeah, the bar was literally made out of a gigantic block of ice that never melted.
That's correct. Yeah, and it was, as soon as you step in there, you want to leave. All right, we want to give a big thanks to all of our patrons who support the show. Patrons get every episode a day early, behind-the-scenes photos of our interviews, a heads-up to send questions to upcoming guests, and access to our Discord server to chat with me, Greg, and other listeners around the world. But best of all, patrons also get an unscripted, uncensored bonus episode every week where we riff on current events and Bangkok topics. On this week's bonus show, we chatted about the meetup that we had last week, which was almost derailed at the last moment, but ended up being a very enjoyable evening. Discussions about Greg's almost eye surgery, a check-in on the Thai movie Dream that I helped a little bit out on, and discussions on how in 2026 we're going to try to get into topics that appeal more to women, a demographic that has had a traditionally tiny percentage of the Bangkok podcast pie. To learn how to become a patron and get all this good stuff, plus full access to over 800 bonus and regular back episodes, click the support button at the top of our website.
And we also want to mention that Ed and I, as is our want and keeping in the spirit of previous years, are taking the last few weeks of 2025 off. We're not going to have any new shows coming out for the rest of the year, but we will be back in the first week of January as per usual with our usual schedule. But we might be throwing up some old shows there for some rerun goodness. So just FYI, no new shows for the rest of 2025. Ed and I are going to be sipping pina coladas on a beach, earning 20%.
I wish.
That is, of course, a line by Hans Gruber from Die Hard, the best Christmas movie ever. Well, on this episode, we get inspired by the unfortunate re-escalation of the conflict between Thailand and Cambodia. Now, by the time you hear this, the whole situation will probably have gone one of two ways. It will either have died back down to nothing or been ratcheted up to alarming levels. Could go either way at this point as we record this on December 10th. So we thought we'd look at the history between Cambodia and Thailand, which, personally speaking, still has a lot of black holes for me. I've never read any books on it. I've never done very deep research myself. Now, the relationship between the two countries, of course, goes back centuries. So there's a lot of baggage here that's been brought up in the current conflict. But we want to talk about how all of this past history may influence the ongoing conflict right now, especially what we've seen in the 20th century, which has been a seen a lot of change, and how that might inform us and clue us in onto how this conflict might be resolved, hopefully sooner rather than later. Now, Ed, this is sort of your wheelhouse. You're a sort of a Southeast Asia history politics guy, so you're much more familiar with the current history than I am. But I thought maybe we could start off with some quick overview of the ancient history between the Khmer Empire and the Ayutthaya Empire, and how Thailand basically kind of emerged on top with that, and how they sort of kept that going for a few hundred years up until the modern era. What do you think of that?
Sure. Yeah, the funny thing is it's not actually really my wheelhouse. My wheelhouse is American politics and maybe political ideology in general. But now that I've been here a quarter of a century, I have tried to up my game on, first, of course, came Thai history, and then I've gotten better about, because I have to teach the Vietnam War in my international relations class. And, of course, Cambodia and the relationship between Thailand and Cambodia and the U.S. is a key part of the story of the Vietnam War.
Sure.
That I've kind of upped my game. So I would not consider myself an expert, but I might know more than the average listener, depending on who you are out there. And of course, you have accumulated knowledge as well as a travel guy, and also having been here a long time. So although neither of us are really experts, maybe we can help out our listeners a little bit with background info and maybe a framework. Because the relationship between Thai people and Cambodian people, it is complicated. It's a long, complicated relationship. It's a long, complicated relationship where on the one hand, they're deeply related to each other and friends in many ways, but also kind of antagonistic in many other ways.
Yeah, it's funny. And I always say, like, it's interesting because the people who have the most conflict with Asian people are other Asian people. That's
often,
that's my view as an outsider,
Yes. And so we're going to do our best to give you guys a summary and just kind of show you where we're at, like our understanding is. So Greg, since I'm a little bit better on the post World War II, like Vietnam era moving forward, the details of that, Greg's going to talk more about the ancient setup.
Yeah, I'm not a historian and I'm not an expert on this, but I just did some reading on this as we were leading up to the show tonight. And of course, this all started with the Khmer Empire, and they sort of came to prominence, came to power around the 800s, somewhere in the mid 800s. Right. And that's when they started building all their magnificent temples. Have you ever been to Siam Reap to see Angkor Wat?
Of course, yeah. Angkor is one of the few tourist places that I recommend.
Oh, really? Yeah.
I think Angkor is worth the hype. It's totally worth the hype.
Mind blowing. I will say though, when I was there, I was like, oh my God, this is the hottest place on earth. I don't know how they built this in this heat.
It was incredibly hot when I was there. I agreed.
Yeah. So the interesting thing about the Khmer Empire, if people don't know, is that like I said, it came to prominence in sort of the mid 800s, and from there it grew and grew and grew. And if you look at a map at the maximum extent of the Khmer Empire, it's crazy, man. It goes up into southern China. It goes all the way across Thailand into what is today's southern Burma, and and right down into the peninsula, almost down to where southern Thailand is today, almost to the Malay Peninsula. So
essentially, the way I think about it is, and I don't think a lot of people think about it this way, but I think Cambodia has something in common with maybe Egypt or Iraq or Iran, where they are the heirs to these ancient empires. So the Angkor Empire, they were essentially the Roman Empire of Southeast Asia. They dominated Southeast Asia. Yeah. And I don't know if every inch of modern Thailand, but most of modern Thailand was part of the Khmer Empire, or at least paid tribute to the Khmer Empire. So there might have been Thai-speaking people here, but they bent the knee to Angkor, and they were essentially absorbed into the Angkor Empire, the Khmer Empire. So so essentially, so the Khmer Empire predates Siam.
Totally. And the interesting thing about the Khmer Empire is that it was Hindu, which came originally, as far as I know, from India, from influences from India.
Right. Yeah. It was Hindu, and then Buddhism spread there as well. And so this is what gives Cambodian Buddhism, Thai Buddhism, its unique flavors because it's essentially a mix of Brahmanism, which is early Hinduism, Buddhism, and then animism, which was here before those influences came. But especially, I mean, you're going to get to it, but that Khmer influence is part of the Thai identity. And I think this is part of the tension because I think Thai people don't want to admit or recognize this. For example, the Thai script is based on the Khmer script. A lot of things that we think of as Thai dance actually comes from the Khmer Empire.
Right.
Like there's so the cultures are intermingled in ways that probably neither side wants to admit that. So there's probably stuff in Cambodia that actually came from Siamese people.
It's a bit of as a bit of an aside. This is very interesting to me because you and I come from cultures that are basically mutt cultures. I think like we're just a mix of immigrants from all over the place,
right?
And like a legit melting pot. So when someone says like, "What's Canadian food?" I'm like, poutine. That's really all we got. Like, you know,
and maple syrup.
Yeah, so it's funny just to compare ourselves with these countries and cultures that have centuries long deep pride in their culture, right? But we come from cultures that just don't really have that.
We especially as we're heirs. You know when I teach American stuff, I talk about ancient Greece. So there is we have cultural roots, but as countries, we're so new that we don't have that.
Right.
We don't have to wrestle with an ancient identity. Like I said, I think it must be weird for modern Egyptians to realize that, hey, 2,000 years ago we were the shit.
Right.
And today Egypt is actually quite poor, other than tourism. Like they're quite poor, and of course the same thing is true of Iraq, is Mesopotamia, the world's first civilization. And I think Angkor fits. And I know Iran is like this. With like Persia, just has an incredible history and cultural and intellectual influence. And today it's at best kind of a middle power, like surrounded by potential enemies.
Right.
And I think Cambodia, this is part of their identity. In other words, 1,000 years ago, 800 years ago, like they were super powerful, and then it's been this long, slow, painful decline.
Right. It's funny you mentioned Persia. I was just watching that really great documentary 300 by Zack Snyder.
That documentary.
Yeah, clips of that on YouTube, and it's pretty fascinating. Anyway, so it's funny because I don't, like I said, I haven't read deeply into the Khmer Empire, but I'm fascinated by it, and I've always known that they were there and then they kind of weren't there. And I never really thought about it beyond that. So I did some reading onto basically what happened to the Khmer Empire. And it sort of suffered the same fate that all these other big empires in history have when they get really big. You talk about the Mongol Empire, the Roman Empire, the Chinese Empire, something like that. The Incas, the Aztecs, they just basically get too big to manage. And then it starts being weakened splintering by internal disputes. They have weather and climate challenges that maybe affect the harvests and the crop yields. Then you get droughts and starvation and things like that. Competition from your neighbors, changing trade routes, bigger and more powerful armies pressing in from the outside. So all by the 1400s or so, all of this was happening to the Khmer Empire, and they were feeling the squeeze. And that kind of coincided with the rise of the Ayutthaya Empire coming out of Ayutthaya. And they really pushed eastward really, really strongly. And in sort of the early 1400s, 1420s or something like that, Ayutthaya kept pushing and pushing and pushing. And of course, Ayutthaya was I think they started as like basically, not started, but I think by this time they were a vassal state that just became.
Yeah, I mean, I think essentially what we think of as Thai people or Siamese people, originally they were subjugated to Angkor.
Right, like most people
where they they had a language, and culture, but they bent the knee to Angkor. But then eventually they built up their own strength. King Ramkhamhaeng, united some warring Thai factions. And eventually they were able to kind of break away from Angkor, stop paying tribute. So in Sukhothai, But then essentially the rise of Siam is at the cost of Angkor.
Yes, yeah, and they moved aggressively eastward, and this is where basically the Khmer Empire starts to fall apart, and it kind of ends
Right.
around 1430. Ayutthaya launched a huge military campaign on Angkor, and all the Khmer forces. There was big battles, but they were overpowered, and they basically kind of retreated to the south and east into
That's right.
modern Phnom Penh is, and further south and further east, and that was basically where the Khmer Empire ended in about the 1430s.
Yeah, I mean, as a large empire, obviously the Khmer people continued on, but
Sure.
they were significantly weakened. And the other problem is that, part of that empire also extended east into the Viet people, but they also rebelled. So they were getting squeezed by both sides. Essentially is what happened, and they were weakened a lot. And so with the rise of the Vietnam, those people, and I think also Vietnam was also colonized by China. So I think China played a role in this as well.
Yeah, and interestingly, as I was doing the reading, I assumed that the Siamese just sort of moved in, or the Ayutthaya kingdom just sort of moved in and was like, "Hey, Angkor, great, we're nice city,
Right.
we'll take it," kind of thing. But that's not what they did, and apparently it was quite common at the time to do something the same thing that Genghis Khan used to do, and they basically rounded up all the artisans, the scribes, the upper classes, the nobles, and they brought them back. They all brought them back to Ayutthaya,
right.
and they
Yes.
sort of redistributed them in the local Ayutthaya society. So
That's right.
I think that's really interesting. So instead of just sort of showing up in a city, taking it by force, and then planting your flag, they just basically took all of the most influential and smartest people, and
Right.
and left the city basically a hollow shell.
That's right. I mean, you and I were chatting about this just a little bit before we started recording. I think what we call Thai dance today, I think it's really, I think the Siamese, I think they captured Cambodian dancers and brought them back to the court of Ayutthaya.
Yes, that's what I read too.
So they grabbed they grab artists and they grab all
dancers,
the cool they grab all the cool shit. They grab all the cool shit and bring it back. And then they absorb. So they basically kind of absorbed Khmer culture. Well, this is why they're so intertwined.
Right.
And I'm not sure you can untangle it, because I think things were going in both directions, where there was this, for hundreds of years, like you said, there's this Siamese influence in among Khmer people, so they must have absorbed a huge amount of Thai stuff.
Right.
So figuring out where it all started, I don't think it is possible or meaningful.
Right.
But it is a key to understanding the current conflict. And once we get, I have more to say once we get into the modern period. But I think the roots of this are necessary to understand the modern stuff.
Right. Well, let me just finish up by saying that I found one particular fact about the sort of fall of the Khmer Empire very, very fascinating. And basically, after all this, like I said, they retreated. The kings and the nobles and the elite classes, they sort of retreated to Phnom Penh. And the reasons that they went to the Phnom Penh area was the Mekong and Tonle Sap river system allowed better trade and closer access to the ocean. And it was also easier to defend from the Ayutthaya Empire if they decided to attack again. And I thought that was really interesting, because that's basically kind of the same thing that happened with the Ayutthaya Empire when it fell to the Burmese. They moved
Correct.
south to Bangkok on a more easily defensible position that was closer to the mouth of the river. I just thought that was kind of an interesting parallel.
No, agreed. I think that's true. My understanding as you move into a more modern period is, I think Cambodia or Khmer people, they found themselves in a situation where just they were in fact weaker. They were surrounded by stronger, at least potential enemies. So they needed a stronger ally. So to get back to what I was trying to talk about, I think in the 1800s, they basically turned to the French as the French and British were coming into Asia, I think Cambodia more or less made a deal with the devil. So the monarchy, the Cambodian monarchy had survived the Siamese Empire and the Vietnamese Empire. And so then when these European powers came who were stronger than the kind of local bullies, so from the Khmer point of view, the Siamese and the Vietnamese are like the local bullies.
Right, the toughs.
That have been eating away at their former greatness.
Right, yeah.
And
okay.
so then when the European like bigger bully shows up, I believe, I'm sure among our listeners, there's probably some true experts in Cambodian history, but I think the Cambodian king basically made a deal with the French to protect them. So when you're like these colonizing European powers, most of the time they don't come in and say, "Hey, we're evil and we're just going to crush you." They come in and say, "Oh, we're a good Christian country. We're going to protect you."
Yeah, either that or the enemy of my enemy is my friend kind of thing.
Yeah, and so I think the French, the Cambodians made a deal with the French to get protected by the French, and then the French, as most people know who know Thai history, what the French did is they took a warship up the Chao Phraya River and quote unquote negotiated with King Chulalongkorn to give the Cambodians independence or semi-independence, and King Chulalongkorn was forced to cede control of what you could call Cambodian land or Khmer land that had bent the knee to Siam for several hundred years. I think for almost 400 years,
right,
they were subjugated. Right. So the French, they were the European power that the Cambodians had to do a deal with. But the result is they essentially became a French colony.
Yeah.
So they had to, it was, this is a brutal, the kind of brutal reality of politics in the real world. Like I don't think they didn't have any good options.
No, and by that time, the Khmer Empire was long since gone. Angkor was a religious site, not a political site. And
that's right.
It was sort of, by that time, Ayutthaya was dealing with the Burmese and the fallout from that. And so the Khmer Empire wasn't really a consideration anymore.
Yeah, and as far as I can tell, like it's I'm obviously more familiar with Thai history than Cambodian history, but modern Cambodian history, it's rough, man. I mean, for many countries, when you get into their history, it's pretty rough. But they really have, they've been in the need of a strong ally. So this is how you survive in a competitive nation-state system, where you have aggressive neighbors or aggressive empire or aggressive, imperial powers, is you need strong friends. And so I think this is the story of Cambodia from the late 1800s until today. They need a patron. They need a powerful ally. So, so it was the French. What happened is the French got occupied by Germany, and this allowed Japan to make advances in World War II. And so essentially the Cambodians had to turn to the Japanese as the new local bully who could help them get land, secure their independence. So Japan became their strong patron, right? And then when Japan was defeated, the French came back for a while. And then essentially we got the Cold War, and they became part, then we get this, do you want me to get into the more modern story of like the Khmer Rouge? Are we ready to talk about that?
I guess so. I don't want to get too deep into the Khmer Rouge. I think we should focus a bit more on the later 20th century stuff. But the Khmer Rouge certainly played a mega role in there.
Well, I think the Khmer Rouge, it lays the groundwork for the modern conflict, because essentially they were super extreme communists, where even kind of what you could call normal communists thought of them as crazy. You know what I mean? It's like
Stalin was like, bro, chill.
Okay. No, the Khmer Rouge were doing stuff like just burning all the money.
Yeah. Hey,
we don't need money. Let's kill all the educated people.
Right. Everyone who wears glasses dead.
Yeah. So what essentially the the Viet Cong, the Vietnamese communists, they looked at the Khmer Rouge as crazy, and so Vietnam ends up invading Cambodia, and that's where Hun Sen comes from. So the Hun Sen clan, which is the only political leaders of modern Cambodia since 1980. Mm-hmm. That's where they come from. So essentially, the Vietnamese install Hun Sen as prime minister, and that's the beginning of the modern story of Cambodia. So they're installed by Vietnamese communists. But then this story is kind of fascinating. What essentially the Vietnamese communists essentially win the Vietnamese War, right? The Vietnam War, what Americans call the Vietnam War, Vietnamese call it the American War. That's what they call it. Yeah. But then in the 80s, Vietnam basically went broke. They were kind of an independent communist country, and then their economy collapsed. And so they needed Soviet help. So essentially, the Soviet Union came in and became the patron that propped up Vietnam during the Cold War, right? Yeah. But then the Soviet Union collapsed in the early 90s, and then now Cambodia needs a new patron, and they needed to distance themselves from the Soviet Union, and that new patron became China.
They were also rising as well.
Yeah, so China becomes the patron of Vietnam and Cambodia, and this begins the modern story of Cambodia, because what Hun Sen did is he maintains, or he capitalizes on this relationship with China, and he gets massive foreign investment from China, but with that brings a lot of corruption. So China starts investing in Cambodia, building skyscrapers, building casinos, and it brings a lot of money and totally shady business practices.
Yeah. China, that's kind of China's MO, right? They're doing the same thing in South America. They're doing the same thing in Africa and a lot of developing countries where they need that injection of money. China's more than happy to step in and expand their sphere of influence.
I hope it's not as corrupt. I mean, essentially what happened in Cambodia is you got casinos, which of course can be legitimate, but you also got the influence of, I guess what you'd call the Chinese mafia or shady figures who are profiting over all this foreign investment. Right. So I'm sure they have like local Cambodian partners, and I think we've talked before. Obviously, Thailand has a problem with corruption, but I think Cambodia is on a completely different level. It's just. It's been one family ruling the country for, I think we're coming up on 35 years. Right. So they don't have, we criticize Thai democracy, but Cambodia is several steps behind. It's not like one step behind.
Yeah.
It's several steps behind, and so. Leading up to the modern conflict, essentially you have a family that relies on the support of China, which is a combination of like legitimate and illegitimate activity. And then so the Hun Sen clan, they have two problems. One problem is, since he was initially installed by Vietnamese communists, the thing that he has always had to solve, or his family has had to solve, he has had to show we are not a puppet or tool of Vietnam.
Okay,
because he literally was started as a puppet of Vietnam. I think Hun Sen started in the Khmer Rouge, and then the Khmer Rouge were nuts, and they had a lot of internal purges.
Right.
And Hun Sen realized, okay, this is a losing game.
Yes, yeah, he was part of it, but then he realized that I got to get out of here.
Yeah, and so then he defected to Vietnam. So he essentially, I mean, I guess I can say this, I think he became kind of a traitor to the Khmer Rouge, and he realized, okay, Vietnam, they're the winners. I think Hun Sen is a political pragmatist. I think he's a survivor, and he I think he realized, okay, the Vietnamese communists, they actually have their shit together. So I think he defected to the Vietnamese communists, but then when the Soviet Union collapsed, then now Vietnam has no patron, and so essentially the question is who's going to be the new patron, and it becomes China.
Yeah, they were happy to step in.
Yeah, so in the 90s, I think Hun Sen's ties with China increased. Now the twist to this whole thing is the Khmer people, they have this ancient rival in Thailand, and so Hun Sen has to manage. He has to show that he's defending Khmer people against Thailand, but also he's not a puppet of Vietnam. Mm-hmm. And the what happened in the late 90s and early 2000s is that because Thaksin was an outsider in Thai politics, they became fast friends.
Right.
In 2000.
Yeah.
Yeah, essentially, because by then the Hun Sen family were billionaires from all the shady shit going on.
Right.
He's got to prove his allegiance to Cambodia, but Thaksin is not a normal. He doesn't come to power through like the normal Thai way. He's an outsider himself to the Thai political elite. So Hun Sen, I think traditionally he can't tie himself to traditional Thai families. But Thaksin was an outsider. He was a newbie.
He was also a pragmatist too, and he sort of had this totally new way of going around the established precedents that have been around for
that's right.
decades and decades and decades.
God, this is could be a double show. But one interesting twist that I'm not sure you're aware of this, but Thailand and Cambodia have these old border disputes, right? And so some of them have to do with specific temples and exactly where the line is.
Yeah.
So listeners, in case you don't know, in certain areas, in certain places, there's actually no official line. So on a map, if you look on Google Maps, they'll have a line between Thailand and Cambodia. But the truth is, officially, it's undetermined in certain specific areas. It's more like a fuzzy, like imagine if you had like a gray, wide band. That's actually the true border between Thailand and Cambodia. They've kind of agreed to disagree about certain areas. So
imagine agreeing to disagree about a border. It's so funny.
Well, they haven't been able to solve it. So they have these unsolved border things that where there happen to be a few important temples. And then another thing, I'm not sure you know about this. I was reading about this the other day. They're also kind of fighting over the sea around Gawkut, because I know you're a Gawkut fan. Mm-hmm, Gawkut is like hangs off of Gawchang. It's close to Cambodia,
right.
And that water around there, I think they either know or suspect that there might be oil reserves there.
Ooh.
And so Thailand and Cambodia have been arguing, negotiating over where the sea border is going to be, and there's actually a claim by Cambodia. I don't think they claim all of Gawkut, but I think they actually have a claim to half of Gawkut. So actually Gawkut and the sea around it is part of this ongoing dispute.
Interesting. Yeah, that's a fascinating element of the whole thing, is that there's a lot of sort of cultural and historical sites that both countries claim, but also both countries are sort of, like, how do I say it?
Well, because the border, I mean, God, this is so complicated. The border that is like on Google Maps, I think was actually drawn by the French. And so it's one of these things that neither Thailand nor Cambodia, they actually weren't the ones who drew that border. It's a little bit like it's a little bit like when the British Empire receded. So when they left, they drew a map and handed it to the local people.
Right. Didn't the international...
Like, here's Jordan, here's Jordan, So they handed a map to local people, and then the local people, I think, accepted it for a while, but then they woke up and they're like, oh shit, like this is actually a British map.
Didn't Thailand and Cambodia actually refuse to let an international body come in and audit the history of the borders and actually draw borders?
the short story is Cambodia, what they want to use the international courts, but Thailand doesn't want to.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. So that's a whole other wrinkle.
Yeah.
And listeners, by the way, as an aside, if you go back and listen to season 3, episode 66, we did a really fun history show on the Cambodian Thai soap opera riots of 2003.
Oh, geez, that's another thing. Yeah.
Fascinating little blip in the relationship between Thailand and Cambodia that started with an actress saying that Angkor Wat belonged to Cambodia and ended with both ambassadors recalled and a whole bunch of shops on fire. Really interesting episode.
Yeah, so bringing it up to date, listeners out there, if you haven't been following it, the most recent stuff in the last 6 months, most people think that the true dispute, the true thing going on, has to do with the Pheu Thai party, the Thaksin Shinawatra clan, their desire to open legal casinos in Thailand. Mm-hmm. And this is a direct threat to Hun Sen and his family because they make a lot of money from casinos over the border in Cambodia, where I think 90% of the customers of those Cambodian casinos are Thai. And so
terribly sad, droopy, ragged places where people just chain smoke and drape themselves off of machines.
I think the Cambodian government, or Hun Sen and his clan and their Chinese partners, they've made a mint over those casinos. Yeah. And so the Pheu Thai party, they wanted to legalize gambling in Thailand. And then the flip side of that is when Hun Sen kind of broke with the Shinawatras and released the phone call with Patong Tarn,
right?
What the Thai government did in response is, we're going to start cracking down on Cambodian scam centers. So the other source of income for the other corrupt source of income in Cambodia is the scam centers, which we've talked about on the show already, which are illegal compounds, and in some cases actually cities in Cambodia that are essentially set up to scam people over the internet. So
right. It's a huge billion-dollar industry
where you have hundreds of people, and sometimes the people working in the scam centers themselves are basically slaves. So the problem now is that I think this is the, I hope it's kind of the death throes of this corrupt syndicate that has run Cambodia since the Vietnam War. And they've been living off gambling revenue, which I think is mostly legal, but also scam center revenue, and essentially when the relationship broke down with the Shinawatra clan, I think that the Cambodian nationalism is at I think they're getting ordered or prodded by the Cambodian government to provoke Thailand. So essentially Cambodian soldiers have been shooting weapons over the border. They've been planting landmines in these disputed gray zone territory. And essentially they've been provoking Thailand to respond. And maybe we're biased because we live here, but I think that the provocations have mostly come from the Cambodian side. And now Thailand, as we're recording this, the Thai government is pissed, and now they're just bombing scam centers.
Yeah, and they're also that also draws in the Chinese mafia, which have a huge presence there as well. Just a lot of Chinese citizens have been arrested in Thailand as they're driving around and stuff. So
that's right.
And they're all talking about moving the captives of these scam centers. Some of them are Africans, some of them are from different countries,
that's
Chinese, wherever, and sort of moving them to Laos or Burma. So there's like a whole undercurrent of gray market, black market finance moneymakers going on here as well.
This, for me, it's a fascinating political problem because, Thailand, I think, has made strides or made inroads in becoming less corrupt. Yeah. We can argue how much, but I think the rule of law is strengthening, but it raises the question of how much can you tolerate the lack of rule of law in your neighbor? And I think mostly Thailand's attitude has been, you do you. So there's a civil war in Burma, and Thailand does not take sides. There's scam centers and gambling in Cambodia. They're like, fine, you do you, but eventually that stuff bleeds over. You can't, like, the bottom line is that you can't. It's very hard if your neighbor is the Wild West. It's going to affect you. It's going to affect you.
Yeah, the status quo can't last like that for too long.
Yeah, and so I think we've reached a point where Thailand has decided they have to stick their nose in their neighbor's business because their neighbor's business is actually affecting them.
Right. Well, it's interesting because I've got friends coming to Thailand over the New Year, and they are going to Koh Kood, and they're a little bit nervous about it. They were sending me messages like, hey, what's up with this? Should we still do it? And my take was, as of now, which is like as of today, I would have no problem going there.
Right.
Because it's a long, long way from where the fighting is. But like you said, it is...
Dude, the border is evacuated. So I think 300,000 Thai people have evacuated the border area now. It's insane.
Crazy, man. Do you think this has a potential to escalate to something like really, really bad? I don't know.
Yes. I mean, I'm not predicting that. Like your intro was perfect. This is the kind of thing that could just calm down in the next 3 days.
It's not unprecedented. There's decades of little flare-ups.
It flares up. But man, when I saw, Thailand has a modern military. It's not huge, but they do have a modern military, whereas Cambodia does not. Thailand now, because of their relationship with the U.S., they have F-16s, so they're not super modern. They're not Gen 5 fighters, but Thailand has a real air force, and they're bombing the crap out of Cambodia as we speak. And it's these are by definition acts of war, So I think right now the Cambodian government has a major decision to make. I mean, they have been. Again, their sovereignty is being totally violated. They're getting bombed by a neighbor. But the truth is, and what I think everyone knows, is the Thai government is picking and choosing targets carefully. They're bombing these illegal, like super black market, shady mafia towns. And so I think the Cambodian government has to be very careful how they respond to this. I don't think they can run to the UN and act sanctimonious. We've been attacked. Oh my God, this is totally unjust. When everyone knows that there's just massive corruption there. So the Cambodian government's they've got a tightrope to walk here.
Yeah, I agree with that. But also, just because Thailand is bombing scam centers, they can't. The international court is not going to say, well, they're scam centers, they probably deserve it, so Thailand's okay here, like in the clear. I know that's why it's a difficult issue, but
yeah, it's hard. But these are acts of war. So what Thailand is doing, it's just by any definition, these are acts of war. And normally a country would, you would have the moral high ground. We have been attacked, we have been bombed. You would have the moral high ground, but the problem is, I don't know if the Cambodian government can truly claim the moral high ground here.
Well, one just hopes that it doesn't turn into a proxy war between China supplying Cambodia and the U.S. supplying Thailand. Jesus.
I mean that's a distant risk right now, and Trump could. I'm all for Trump. He previously got them to sign an agreement, which now has been totally violated by both sides.
Yeah.
So Trump today actually said he's going to come back in, and so I'm all for it if he can do that. The bottom line is that I think these disputes over the border or the sea. To me, these are purely political things that you solve with lawyers and you sit around a table. But there's no reason anyone. Yeah, there's no reason anyone needs to be dying over this. Right. So it truly is. It's truly tragic, and any way you can just stop the shooting and the fighting right now to get to the stage of let's sit down and hammer this out is better. But Cambodia has to give up this gross mafia black market shit. So I think this is a turning point. As a non-Cambodia expert, the way I see this is a turning point for Cambodia. It's like because Thailand is, I think, just not going to tolerate it anymore. Like the excessive like super scammy stuff that's happening right over the border in Cambodia. Thailand has now said we're not going to look the other way.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because all these sort of like black market, gray market things, they're always tolerated up to a point, whether it's fishing boats, slavery, whether it's human smuggling across the borders or something like that.
Right.
They're always tolerated up to a point until they reach that tipping point where it becomes international news or it becomes so big that it starts to affect other industries and have this sort of like gravity well that starts drawing other things into it. And then it becomes a big problem that everyone has to deal with. So I think we're seeing that now. In my expert opinion as a international relations negotiator.
Agreed. I would agree with that.
Well, it's interesting, man, and this is something that I said, like our countries don't have to deal with. We're not fighting with people that's based on centuries of back and forth and cultural integration and conflict, So it's a really interesting dynamic here in play.
Well, listeners, from two non-experts, I hope that at least was a little bit of a primer.
Yeah. Again, we're not experts. We're just sort of observers and people who are living here. And we hope that everyone comes to the table and negotiates something that is that everyone gets. Yeah, man,
this is an opportunity for Trump. I mean, Trump did get them to stop shooting before. So if he can do it again, more power to him.
Yeah, he's got a bunch of billions of dollars in crypto. Just throw some money around. So
that's right.
the yin to the Chinese
make a crypto
yen.
deal. Yeah, give Hun Sen a crypto deal.
Sure. Yeah, who doesn't like crypto? I got some.
Works for me.
All right. Well, let's get into some love, loathe, or live with, where one of us picks a particular aspect of living in Bangkok, which we discuss to decide if it's something we love about living here, loathe about living here, or have come to accept as something that we just have to learn to live with, no matter how we feel about it. And this week, Ed, what do you got for me?
All right. I've got a little bit of a reverse question for you. It kind of shows how much Thailand has changed recently. We've talked many times about how Thailand is fairly advanced in the electronic banking department.
Okay.
Right? So I've got a little bit of a reverse love, though, to live with.
Oh.
What do you think about now if you're talking to, let's say, a vendor or maybe a taxi guy and they won't accept a QR code or transfer, where they insist on cash?
That's interesting because I am finding myself less and less with my wallet now. Like I hardly ever have my wallet or cash.
That's why I'm asking this, because this is a new thing for me where I've become more reliant on QR, and most Thai people are on board.
Yeah. I kind of find it annoying, but I also rarely leave without a little bit of cash. It's funny because cash has now become the backup, like the just in case solution.
Yes. That's why I wanted to ask you about this. It's a little bit of a reverse thing.
Yeah. I kind of find it annoying. Like every citizen in Thailand has a prompt pay because it's tied to your phone number and your bank card, your ID card, I think.
Right.
But the flip side is this: there's some stores like Starbucks, they don't accept cash at all, and then you have other little vendors that only accept cash. So you still got to be prepared for it. But I find there's no real excuse for someone not to use a QR code, and this seems to be the way that everyone's moving. Yeah, it's kind of annoying.
I'm a bit lost. A few years ago, I was open to e-banking, but I still had this idea that cash is not going to die. I'll always have cash in my pocket. So cash comes first. And I hate the places that won't take cash. That's where I was about 3 years ago.
Really?
Where, I'm a gadget guy. I'm tech savvy. So I was never against, transfers or QR codes. But I always hated when I went to a Starbucks and they said no cash.
Okay, right.
But now I've flipped.
Interesting.
I've gone to the dark side now, where my attitude is, why do we need cash? What did you like? I had the reason I thought of this is because I was in 2 taxis today, and both guys were bitching and moaning. They were like, "Mami QR, like mami own means to transfer." They're like, "Own my die," they're like QR my die.
You're like, all right, here's your paper money, Grandpa.
And I'm like, I don't have cash. And so then they're bitching and moaning. And so now I'm totally, I'm like, what's wrong with you? Like, why would you rely on cash?
It's funny. You've totally flipped.
I've completely flipped now. And now I loathe people who demand cash. I
don't loathe it. I'm a live with, but I still find it a little bit annoying.
Embrace the future, Greg.
I have. But it's always, I guess I'm a Boy Scout, right? Always be prepared. Have a spare 100 baht in your back pocket.
It's a good idea. Probably a good idea. All right. A final thanks to our patrons who support the show. Patrons get a ton of cool perks and the warm, fuzzy feeling knowing that they're helping in our never-ending quest for cool content. Find out more by clicking support on our website and connect with us online. We're Bangkok Podcast on social media, bangkokpodcast.com on the web, or simply bangkokpodcast@gmail.com. We love hearing from our listeners and always reply to our messages.
That's right. You can also listen to each episode on YouTube. Send us a voicemail through our website. We'll feature that on the show. Hit me up on Blue Sky, BKK Greg. Thank you for listening, everyone. Again, no shows for the rest of the year. Have a great holiday, and we'll see you back here in January.
For sure. Happy holidays.